All right, guys, this is Scott. Coming up on this episode of the Upper One podcast, I'll be flying solo. I'm just going to talk about my favorite podcast, not counting the Upper One podcast. I'll be right back. Okay, thanks for joining me. Today I'm going to mess around with the pod decks. You know, several months ago I bought this pack of these pod decks where there's 5 decks of cards and each one has 50 cards in them. You know, when you get stuck, don't have any ideas, the first deck is the episode deck. It gives you ideas of how to, what to talk about. So I pulled one out, and it is talk about your favorite podcast. So basically, I don't have a specific favorite podcast. There's 4 that I listen to religiously when I'm not listening to other music. First off, I'm gonna start nationally, and then I'm going to go local because there's 2 big name podcasts that I listen to, and then there's 2 local podcasts that are here in Eagle River, Alaska. So first and foremost, the Dale Jr. Download. As all of you that are close to me know, or all of you that are friends of me know, I am an Earnhardt fan. I named my son Tristan after Dale Jr. So when I found out that Dale had his own podcast, I jumped right on it. Just a quick description right here off of his page. The Dale Jr. Download podcast begins its 8th year in 2020 and 4th season with Junior behind the mic. What it does is it just connects racing's past, present, and future with dynamic guests, candid commentary, and thoughtful conversation from Earnhardt and co-host Mike Davis. The new episodes of the Download drop every Tuesday, and they also have the television show on Wednesdays on NBC Sports. So anyways, it's pretty dang cool to sit and watch them when I do watch the videos. You can check them out. dirtymomedia.com/Dale Jr. Download. And if anything, this guy, man, he's kind of like The Rock to me. You know, The Rock started off in wrestling, had the background with the family in wrestling, and then he turned into movies because he's an entertainer. Well, I think Dale Jr. could do it too, because when you listen to some of his ads and just the fun that they have back and forth when they're just doing the paid advertisement, that's amazing. But other than that, I mean, listen, he's had guests on from most recently in the NASCAR news, Kyle Larson. He kind of got himself into some trouble. I've listened to several episodes. Mike Skinner, he's a retired racer. Larry McReynolds, he was a crew chief. More importantly, he was the crew chief of Dale Sr. when he won the '98 Daytona 500. You know, Junior also owns his own race team for the Xfinity Series, so he's had some of his drivers, Justin Allgaier on, Ernie Irving. Chocolate Myers was a crew member to Dale Sr.'s when he was driving. He's had Jimmy Johnson on, 7-time Winston Cup champ, 7-time NASCAR Series champ, not Winston Cup. Everybody, Mark Martin. Actually, they turned the Mark Martin episode into 2 episodes, so it was so long. There was an episode where they started live when I listened to this one from June, when he got the announcement that he was going to be inducted into the Hall of Fame. Kurt Busch, Matt Kenseth, one of his best friends in racing. Just some guys from way back when. Roger Penske, he's the owner of Penske Racing. You know, Rusty Wallace, when he was in the Miller and Miller Lite Cars. That was his owner. Um, Dale Jr.'s older sister, Kelly, she's involved in a lot of Junior's businesses, so he's had her on, and so on. I mean, I could go on. They've literally, like I said, this was his 8th year. As of October 28th, his episode with Rick Hendrick and Kyle Larson, it's called Kyle Larson and Rick Hendrick, Second Chances. That was uploaded the 28th of October. That was episode 321. So 8 years of episodes. And you go on this page and watch them. There's video of them talking. They've also got a picture of this table. So when Junior first started out, he was just broadcasting from the couch. And then eventually they progressed. His motor shop there, they made one room into his podcast room where they've got the cameras. They've got all kinds of stuff on the walls. This table's probably easily 6 by 6, and they've got race cars on it. They've got the microphones, and he's done real good. And like I said, he's an amazing host for this podcast, and just an all-out personality. You know, he's also broadcasting on NBC for the races. So, you know, that's first and foremost, that's my favorite podcast. Just because I am an Earnhardt fan, I'm gonna be pro anything Dale Jr. does. Next off is, it's called A Couple In with Cody Jinks. So not this past summer, but the summer before. So 2019, our backyard barbecue concert series that we have up here, Cody Jinks was here, and he, you know, I had listened to Cody. I had heard him a few times on the Kindle Marvel channel when I you know, when I have Spotify or Pandora on. I put Kindle Marvel on, and they don't just play all them songs. You know, they kind of mix in similar music into that playlist. Well, Cody Jinks was on there, and so I really didn't know him, but I liked his song. The one song that I remember was Must Be the Whiskey. So we went to that backyard barbecue, and Cody kicked ass. He you know, just playing acoustically like that with no band. It just, you know, it was badass. And what it did was he gained a fan for life. We were standing right up on the front, my group, and there was probably a dozen military members, guys that were active military, that were standing, you know, all around us, behind us. And I got to talking with some of those guys, and they said, you know what, this guy got us through being over in the desert. When they were deployed, that's all the one guy told me, that's all they listened to was Cody Jinks. And from that concert on, like for the next 3 months, I didn't even listen to my favorite country radio station here in Anchorage, Alaska, K-Bear 104.1. I didn't listen to that. I listened straight day in and day out. If I could have it on 24/7, I had Cody Jinks on. I listened to all his music. He had a few albums come out within that time, where actually he simultaneously put out 2 albums. And I believe the one was called The Wanting, and the other one is called After the Fire. And I listened to those, and I pounded Cody Jinks. This guy, he's amazing, and can't say enough of that. I don't know the whole history. From what I gathered, it sounds like they had started this podcast several years ago, and it really didn't go anywhere. And I would imagine part of that being because, you know, he was touring, and you know, he was doing other things. But what he had turned it into doing was, like, if they were on the bus, they would just sit down and bullshit and talk and do this podcast, and it's progressed. So here's what it says on his. He's also on Anchor, just like this Upper One podcast. He's on Anchor. Cody Jinks is a country artist that has had and continues to have profound success within the credible country music space. His knowledge of country, rock, metal, and beyond is significant. He's also a huge fan of sports, comedy, the outdoors, and very much enjoys fishing. That's the description on the Anchor page. Basically, this guy, he rocks it. I watched a YouTube video where somebody recorded when Clint Black inducted him into the Grand Ole Opry. I don't know if that was a official induction or if he just got to play at the Ryman for the Grand Ole Opry, but there is a video. But yeah, Cody, amazing dude, great voice, great guitar player. He's had Kendall Marvel, our buddy Kendall, on his podcast, and then he's got a little group kind of like Dale Jr. where they're just a couple buddies. Same with me and Eric and Tim, where you just sit and talk, and then then you bring guests in when you can. Hopefully, on this Upper One podcast, we'll have more guests, but that's another good one. They sit around, like I said, they just sit around and talk. Like Eric and I, we're sitting around talking, drinking a beer while we're talking. I haven't really heard any episodes that I remember them just playing any music. Maybe a guest or two where they playing on the pod, but yeah, that's another one to check out. So now going local, I'm going to start with this guy because I met him down at the brewery. Talked to him for, when the first day I met him, I talked to him for a good, probably 5 minutes or so, maybe. I don't remember exactly, but his name is Dave Joslin. Most people call him Doc J. He's got a podcast called Bullets to Beans. So Dave was a medic in the military when he was in service, and he stayed within the health care community. So shout out to Dave. Doc, man, you're awesome. So what his podcast is about, he's very involved in, if you got your local in your local communities where you have the organizations that try to help out our veterans, or specifically, more than just veterans, are wounded military members that might not have a career anymore because they were wounded, like Wounded Warriors up here in Alaska. We've got Alaska Healing Hearts. Dave has a foundation. Bullets to Beans is a brand of Lifeline Media, LLC. It's a podcast series that focuses on current veteran issues and topics, military culture, service transition, odd humor, and more. So, as we all know, you go spend some time over in the desert doing, serving our country and providing our freedoms for us non-military members. Military members, they go through a lot. Their minds get twisted. They come back with a lot of stuff. It causes a lot of problems, not just with them, with their families. Well, what Doc does is he's started foundations where they, they get active. They go hiking. They do this, they do that. But they also talk about their current issues of, whether it be suicide prevention, trying to keep 22 service members a day from killing themselves, stuff like that. They've had EOD techs on. He's talked with several different people, some of whom have transition from military life into still some form of first responding jobs. Like one gentleman was used to be the EOD or something along those lines, where he is now a police officer, but he's also one of their snipers for the SWAT team. So they've talked to him. It's really great shows. I'm still catching up with on it. I see Dave down at the brewery. I tell him, man, look, I'm caught up to this. I'm caught up to this spot. I really enjoyed this show. He's got such a great attitude. Overall, generally good guy that I'm getting to know, and I appreciate you listening, Dave. And I'm here to plug your pod whenever I can. That leads me to my last one. Like I said, I don't have any one favorite podcast, but these are my four that I listen to total. Well, this one is called the Dump and Change podcast, and I've been on this one. Had some fun with these guys when they did allow me to make a fool of myself. Basically, so I talked about Dave, Doc J, and I meeting at the brewery. Well, the brewery is the Odd Man Rush Brewery here in Eagle River, Alaska, where we keep Eagle River Odd. Right now they got 11 beers on tap, craft beers that are brewed locally. It's my favorite brewery ever, some of the best beer ever. So anyways, Reed McDonald, rock on Reed. He's one of the owners of the brewery. He's also the president of the Eagle River Hockey League. He does a lot with our community. Well, him and a few other guys that are involved with the league, with the hockey league, they started this podcast. And actually, the story with this one is pretty cool between the Dump and Change and the Upper One, because, this is just a hobby for Eric and I. It turned into having Tim with us. Just a hobby to have fun. It took us some time to get used to talking in this mic, but it's still a hobby. We're having fun with it. Well, not in a million years do I think I'm going to make money off of this, trying to get sponsorships or do this. But when I first started thinking about it, I went right to Reed, and I was thinking, well, I wonder if we could get a couple bucks from Odd Man to do this. But kind of not necessarily got shot down, but he's like, yeah, we're starting one. We're starting a podcast too. And I'm like, oh, cool. I can't wait. Because Rito, if you know Reed, you don't ever know what you're getting sometimes with him. And what I mean by is, you got to check out their YouTube page or their Instagram page or whatever, their Facebook page. Reed pops up videos out of nowhere, and sometimes they're just, hey, climbing the mountain, here's some beer on top of the mountain. Sometimes it's some funny stuff. But he started this podcast with a few guys, and Walter Eunice is one of the guys. He I don't know if he's actively still coaching at Chugach High School with Coach Wild, but Walter's been busy this summer. He's kind of like dual citizenship between states now. He's been traveling in and out every couple of weeks to go to hockey down in the States with one of his kids, and that's just pretty fun because they've done some simultaneously broadcasts where Walt's sitting in the bathroom of the hotel room with his laptop and his headphones trying to do this podcast. And then there's Kenny Holmberg, Big Genge. He is a local Eagle River resident also. Went to high school here. He also, I don't know if he's reffing our league again this year. I haven't quite got that, but he was refereeing some of our games last year. He's kind of like the technical guy. that does all the all the computer stuff. And then there's Vice President and Executive Producer Steve Glines. For those of you here in Anchorage, Glinesy used to also be a linesman. There's been times where I've chirped at him from the stands at the Aces game because I thought he was making some weird calls, but overall this bunch of guys is great dudes. And before I get any further on talking about their podcast, I got called out. I don't know, not directly got called out, but I got called out. And basically it was because I used a royalty free music. I used a song to intro and outro our podcast. Well, it just happens to be the same music that they use on theirs, on the Dump and Change podcast. So Walt, man, I'm trying to make it right. If anything, it was an homage to you guys. It wasn't that I was stealing your music, because for those of you guys that know, I change my music every episode. So if that hurt your feelings, Walt, man, I'm sorry. Maybe not, but I'm just making it right. I wanted to let y'all know it was an homage to the Dump and Change podcast, because I do play hockey here in Eagle River. These are great guys. I'm not kissing your ass, because that's not happening. That's for you guys at the table to do on the Dump and Change. But anyways, what these guys do, it's this Dump and Change, it's so funny. They're hockey guys, and if you know anything about guys that play hockey, there are any kind of sport, when you're with a bunch of guys on the road, you find stuff to do to make fun of each other, pull pranks. Well, having been part of a hockey community, I think hockey's the worst one of them all. I played basketball, I played football. Hockey is the worst one of them all when it comes to overall shenanigans, stuff like that. Let me see if I can't find, where's it at? Wait, hold on. I gotta get the. I'm working on the computer here, so I'm trying to find. Because I had the Facebook page pulled up, but I didn't have the actual pod pulled up. But they've had some pretty amazing guests on there. I do know that Coach Wild, I mentioned him. He's the Eagle River High School hockey, or I'm sorry, Chugiak High School hockey coach. I do know that he was supposed to be a guest, and it just kind of didn't work out at the time, but I know that's in the works. Coach Wild's an amazing dude, but I can't wait for that episode. So some of the guests that they've had on, their most recent episode was with Brian Swanson, which Brian has had some NHL experience, and he's a local Eagle River resident, born and raised here. Happens to be Reed's brother-in-law and co-owner of the Odd Man Rush Brewery. So he was their most recent episode on the 13th of October. We've also had, they've had Jimmy Reese and Frank Nosek, which are Alaska hockey purists. That's what they've got listed. Alaska hockey purists. These guys, those two guys, they just know everything about hockey in the state of Alaska. Going down to, if you go back to the July 22nd episode, which it's titled Odd Man Rush Live Aid Part 2. Well, that's the episode I was on. They've had a few other guys on here. They, one of the most funny ones. They had a hockey mom panel, and I think this is going to be like a kind of an ongoing series until they get them all. They have the new moms, and then the veteran moms, and then the battle axes, there may be another one, or I'm missing one, but basically, you got your stages of being a hockey parent, and that's what they talk about on this. And I swear to you know what, as much as these boys talk, those moms, I think they use the F word more times on that episode than the boys ever have in the entire history of the Dump and Change podcast. But they've had Zoe and Tori Hickle on here, a local celebrity, Pete McEnany, amazing dude, lots of good talk. They've had Rito's son Cam. They've had another local referee, Josh Ellis. They've had another badass dude, J.J. Johnson. The governor used to play for the Aces. He played for UAA. Grew up, went to East High School. If you look him up, JJ played, Justin Johnson played 2 games for the New York Islanders, where he got called up from the Bridgeport Tigers while he was playing AHL for them. He got called up and got to play 2 games. If you look him up on YouTube, JJ, look up John Scott, Justin Johnson fight, and watch that. It's John Scott's 6'8" like me, and JJ I think is 6 foot, maybe 6'1". I think he's listed 5'10", but I think I know JJ personally. I think he's 6 foot or 6'1", but you got to watch that. But they've had JJ on there. They've also had another local. His name is Brock Lindo. He's the lead singer of 36 Crazy Fist, for those of you hardcore rockers. But Brock grew up playing hockey. He's also on the morning show of 106.5 K-Well. That was a good episode. But to top that off, Rookie of the Year, Scotty Gomez. They had him in there for so long that it took 2 episodes, because Scotty is a character. Anyways, so basically, I've got a little long-winded on Dump and Change. These guys are awesome. They do a lot around here. Here's what the Dump and Change says. It's a show about Alaska hockey and other musings. So basically, I mean, I've talked about, they've had the 2 NHLers, well, 3, counting JJ. They really haven't talked a whole lot about the NHL hockey. They focus on local youth hockey, high school, and the beer league, where they kind of go in depth about talking about this. The ups and downs, especially here in Alaska, with us being kind of remote compared to most places. As I talked about with Walt, these kids get going. They've got, they figure out they've got the skill, or some that don't, and then they end up deciding to leave and going elsewhere so that they can get the exposure. Like I said, and they talk about that, because in a lot of ways that hurts local hockey up here. And so these guys, like I said, they get in depth conversations about with their guests and their knowledge of that guest knowledge about why Alaska sports has its ups and downs, and then also, like I said, comedic value. As you spending time with these hockey players, you learn some of these phrases. And I'm not going to say the one that has to do with the barn, but like chirping is talking trash. That's what you do in hockey, is called chirping. Other phrases like that were little words that that when it means something else, you might have a nice flow, or something else. It might be called something else now, but they're talking about the dude's locks and his hair because he's grown his hair out. So yeah, that would be it. I have not one specific favorite podcast, but these are the ones that I listen to. When there's a new episode, I drop them. I listen to them. I hope that with the Upper One podcast, we've got them some listeners, and and I hope we've gained some listeners from them. So, with that being said, that's my episode for today. Once again, Travis Brown is the creator of the Pod Decks. I pulled that one out. Talk about your favorite podcast, and I used it. And hopefully, we'll get to some more. We get some more interviews going. Travis has 5 different decks. Episode deck, then there's 2 interview decks, and then there's a couple that are like little silly games like What the Heck or Would You Rather. So in closing, I'm gonna say What the Heck. I'm gonna pull one out, and I'm just gonna read one off as I close the pod. What the heck? If you could bring one famous person back from the dead, who would you pick? Well, I don't know that I could narrow it down to one. Today being November 2nd, we just lost Sean Connery, my favorite actor, the best Bond ever. If I had a choice based on a category, he would be one I would bring back. I would definitely bring back Elvis. Elvis helped me through a lot of stuff when I was driving truck in 2007. His music, I probably listened more to Elvis while I was driving truck that year than I did have ever in all my life. I got a lot. I mean, musically, if I wanted to do that category, I would definitely bring back Kenny Rogers or Johnny Cash, Waylon Jennings. I could put one specific dead person at the top of my list based on each category. Man, I don't know that there's one specific one. Well, you want to get into wrestling, I think I would bring the Macho Man back. I'm a big Hulk Hogan fan. The Macho Man was big on during that era. Entertainment wise, I mean, who do we just lost? There's a lot. Like I said, there's not one specific. But anyways, that's what these cards are. That was the What the Heck deck. Like I said, there's 2 interview decks. There's the interview deck, and then the second edition, the episode deck. When you get stuck, like I'm trying to get the ball rolling back with the Upper One podcast since we've been off for 2.5 months. And then last but not least is a Would You Rather deck, and that one's kind of good. But we've used these cards a couple times when I've had the kids on while we're playing around. The kids really like the What the Heck or the Would You Rather deck. Tristan and Kaylee are both 11. Danica's 8. Matter of fact, she's going to turn 9 in 12 days. A very, very pretentious 9. So those kids, they like to get on here. I think they like being on the microphone more than I do, because they're always coming in and bugging me when we're recording. So, but yeah, Travis Brown, you look him up. Pod Decks, pretty nice little kit to try to help. Not only that, his Facebook page, he's got lots of information. Sometimes he'll even try to help you if you have the time to set up stuff with him when he's offering. So yeah, that's it. hopefully, like I said, today's November 2nd. We're going on a quarter to noon, and maybe this afternoon, after everybody's gotten off work, we'll be able to get back on track normal with the Upper One podcast. Thanks again for listening, and hopefully the three of the boys will be back, him and Eric and me. So until then, for Eric and Tim, who are not here, I'm Scott. This is the Upper One podcast coming at you from the Chugiak foothills of the Eagle River Valley. Signing off.